Clara Immerwahr. Science doesn't always kill with explosions or radiation. Sometimes it kills by breaking someone's soul. Enter Clara Immerwahr, a brilliant chemist in her own right, married to Fritz Haber, the man proudly known as the father of chemical warfare. Not exactly a cute couple's nickname. While Clara worked to prove herself in a male-dominated scientific world, her husband was busy weaponizing chemistry. In 1915, he oversaw the first large-scale use of chlorine gas on the battlefields of World War I. Soldiers clawed at their throats as the gas destroyed their lungs. Haber saw it as a military triumph. Clara saw it as a grotesque betrayal of science. The clash between them was brutal. She believed science should heal humanity, not suffocate it in trenches. After one of Haber's victories, Clara went into their garden, took his military pistol, and shot herself in the chest. She died while her husband celebrated with colleagues. In a cruel twist, he left for the front the very next morning, as if nothing had happened. Clara's death wasn't just despair, it was the ultimate protest. She became the first silent casualty of chemical warfare, not on the battlefield, but in her own home. Marie Curie, discovering something so magical, it literally glows in the dark. Most people would stop at, cool, I'll sell it as a nightlight. But not Marie Curie. She pushed further, cracking open the mysteries of radiation with her discoveries of radium and polonium. Back then, radiation was like the new celebrity in town. People put it in toothpaste, beauty creams, and even drinks. If it sparkled, it had to be good for you. Curie and her husband Pierre kept vials of radium in their pockets, marveling at its soft, ghostly glow. They handled it with bare hands, blissfully unaware that the magic was burning their DNA one cell at a time. Decades of exposure took their toll. Curie developed aplastic anemia, a brutal condition where her bone marrow stopped making blood cells. In 1934, she died, essentially bled dry by her own discoveries. Her work transformed medicine and physics forever, but the irony is painful. The woman who gave the world radiation therapy couldn't protect herself from it. And here's the kicker. Her notebooks are still so radioactive that they're locked in lead-lined boxes, and anyone who wants to study them has to wear protective gear. Her legacy glows brighter than ever, but it also glows dangerously. Thomas Midgley Jr. When people make top villains of history lists, they usually throw in tyrants and warlords. But if we're being honest, Thomas Midgley Jr. might deserve a spot. Not because he was evil, but because his inventions nearly wrecked the entire planet. Cars in the 1920s were noisy beasts plagued by engine knock. Midgley's brilliant solution? Add tetraethyl, lead to gasoline. Overnight, engines ran smoother. Problem solved. Except the solution poisoned millions of people. Refinery workers started hallucinating, convulsing, and sometimes dying after exposure. To calm the public, Midgley held a press demo where he rubbed the chemical on his hands and inhaled the fumes to prove it was safe. Spoiler, it wasn't. But the Earth wasn't done with him yet. Later, Midgley invented chlorofluorocarbon CFCs, which seemed like a miracle for fridges and air conditioners. Unfortunately, decades later, scientists realized CFCs were tearing a hole in the ozone layer. The man had accidentally given humanity lead poisoning and an atmospheric death trap. That's a pretty impressive resume of destruction. And how did he die? Not from his chemicals. Midgley contracted polio and designed an elaborate pulley system to lift himself out of bed. One day, he got tangled in the ropes and strangled to death. The inventor who poisoned the air was finally killed by his own gadget. Poetic, tragic, almost sitcom-level irony. Andrei Zheleznyakov. In 1979, deep inside the Soviet Union, he was working with a top-secret nerve agent nicknamed Substance 33. During one experiment, a leak exposed him. At first, he just felt weak. Then came the migraines, then seizures, then memory loss. His nervous system unraveled piece by piece until he could barely function. He lived in unrelenting agony for 5 years before finally dying. The Soviet Union never admitted the accident. Officially, nothing happened. No headlines, no obituary, no scientific paper warning future researchers. Just silence. Zheleznyakov became a ghost casualty of a weapon so secret, the world still barely knows about it. His life was swallowed by secrecy, proving that sometimes the deadliest experiments are the ones no one's even allowed to talk about. Alexander Bogdanov. You're an early 20th century scientist, and you think you found the fountain of youth. All you have to do is swap blood with younger people. Sounds like the setup to a bad vampire movie, but Alexander Bogdanov believed it could work. He started transfusing himself with blood from younger donors, and at first he swore it worked. His eyesight got sharper, his hair stopped falling out. He bragged that his body felt younger. He was convinced he was onto something big, eternal youth through transfusion. But Bogdanov underestimated biology's love of sick jokes. In 1928, he injected himself with blood from a student infected with both malaria and tuberculosis. Instead of immortality, he basically got a live-action medical horror show. He died in agony, proving that sometimes the price of playing vampire is, well, death. Modern science would later prove him half right. Blood transfusions are life-saving, but not a time machine. Bogdanov's mistake was treating biology like a genie that grants wishes, when really it's more like a trickster that hands you a loaded disease instead. Louis Slotin, if you thought juggling chainsaws was dangerous, try juggling plutonium. In 1946, physicist Louis Slotin was working with the infamous demon core, a chunk of plutonium so temperamental it had already killed one scientist. Slotin's job was to test how close it could get to going critical. The method? Hold two hemispheres of beryllium apart with nothing more than a screwdriver. Yes, a literal screwdriver stood between routine experiment and miniature nuclear blast. Slotin had a reputation for showing off, performing the stunt in front of colleagues like a mad science party trick. But then, his screwdriver slipped. The core slammed shut, and the lab filled with a blinding blue flash. Slotin felt a wave of heat, like standing in front of an open oven door from hell. He muttered, "Well, that does it," knowing instantly he was doomed. Over the next 9 days, radiation ravaged his body, vomiting, organ failure, cell death, until he died. The demon core was retired after that, because apparently someone finally realized that using a screwdriver to babysit plutonium was not the best safety protocol. Rosalind Franklin. Her photo 51 revealed the helical structure of DNA, the key to understanding life itself. But those X-rays weren't harmless snapshots. They were concentrated blasts of radiation. In the 1950s, safety standards were basically, you'll probably be fine. Franklin wasn't fine. Years of exposure damaged her body, and at just 37, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She died 4 years later. Meanwhile, Watson, Crick, and Morris Wilkins received the Nobel Prize. Franklin got almost nothing. No recognition, no fame, just a footnote in the history books. But the reality is clear. Her sacrifice helped crack the code of life, even if history mostly forgot her name.